Can't hear you.
There you go. Now you can hear me.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, there we go. Let's try this again. Welcome to live, right? Hey, so welcome to VanderLIVE again. For the very first time, excited to be able to sit here and talk with my friend Brian Jensen, who is our senior executive search consultant. Specifically, I want to talk to him today. He's worked with the churches that we work with and help find the right people. But he also has a lot of experience inside of the education world. What's been really cool, even though we have been known, VanderBlumen has been known as the premier executive search firm for churches. Matter of fact, our tagline used to be "We staff the church" because it was true. I mean, it was really the senior pastors and executive pastors and things of that sort, worship pastors, youth pastors, children's pastors. That was really where our sweet spot was. But really, I love how William says it. We're Team Jesus. So if we're placing people for for-profit, nonprofit, all those sorts of things, as they have a heart for Jesus and his kingdom. And it's really opened up in the past, what do you say, 2 or 3 years, we've seen a lot more K-12 and even some higher ed come on board and allow us to be a part of that. So Brian, talk to us a little bit about how that all came to be and some of your experience there.
Yeah, well, Michael, it's really good to be with you, and good to be chatting with others that might be listening. Yeah, so as Michael said, the firm, for the last decade plus has really been helping churches, and organically would get asked to do something like a local Christian school. And probably I've been with the firm 3.5 years, so it's probably about 4 years ago that VanderBlumen made a strategic decision to enter into the Christian education space, and that's how our paths crossed. And so I came on board. My previous career was 15 years in Christian education, and so coming on board and leading some of those efforts and really focused on how do we serve Christian schools well has been a ride, and we saw it start, and then this global pandemic happened, which threw a little wrench in things. But we navigated through that, and over the last, I'd say, probably 16 to 24 months, we've really seen kind of the traction start, and we've been serving a lot of Christian schools, and it's just such a joy. Yeah, as William says, Team Jesus, and really it's this incredible joy and privilege, and I do it with humility to enter in and serve Christ's kingdom broadly as we work with Christian schools and navigate some difficulties with them, and also some highs when they get to make a new hire.
Yeah, you talked about the pandemic and that shutting things down. I mean, obviously churches got hit by that, but man, schools got hit hard by that. I mean, it changed everything for them. And so what are some unique things you see as we do serve schools that maybe are different than the church, or that are just newer pain points?
Wow, newer pain points. I mean, there's a list. I would say what might be unique about serving a school, and I work with both churches and schools. There's not that churches don't come with complexities, but entering into a school, there's just this really unique complexity about all the moving pieces, and the various constituents that school leaders have to keep in mind, from students to their faculty, to their staff, to donors, to their board, and families, moms and dads. Right. And so there's just a lot that goes into thinking through the complexities of working with schools. And I think what we're seeing, this isn't a new phenomenon. This doesn't come out of COVID, but I would say we've seen it rising over the past decade. So I do a lot of work with schools as they're looking for a head of school, somebody for the number one seat. And we've created this job description in Christian education, where what we're asking the head of school to do, even before a pandemic, was becoming increasingly more difficult and just burdensome. And then throw in COVID, and that has been even more challenging. But there's some excitement that's coming out of that as well. And I think as I talk with heads, there's certainly challenges, but I've talked with, even just one last week, I was having a great conversation about some of the new and innovative things they're thinking through. And I talk to people who are just as committed or more than ever to the mission of Christian education. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you hear that. I mean, you hear it in the news, you hear it all. That it's not just about school, but having your faith alongside of that. I think it's becoming more and more important as as public schools are changing and adding new things to curriculum and things of that sort. I think it's such a instrumental time for the school.
Yeah.
Tell me a story. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Tell me a story of a head of school that we've placed that was that's just really hit home for you.
They all hit home for me. And I say, I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. I really do. I mean, I
Yeah,
think it's an incredible privilege to walk with a school and get to know them and
yeah,
some of their ins and outs, and then see them find this new leader. But it's also walking with an individual who's going through a discernment process and
right.
trying to figure out where the Lord is calling them. And then, is this the right fit? Is this the call in my life to go into this place? I would say there's been a couple recently. One that comes to mind. I worked because this we just wrapped up our work earlier this spring with a school, Contra Costa Christian schools in the Bay Area,
Yeah,
and really cool school doing some amazing things. And the woman that ended up who's now getting ready to start her first year there,
yeah,
Tammy, her name's Tammy Kirkpatrick, and I had gotten to know Tammy probably a couple years ago, as she was interested in pursuing head positions,
yeah.
and just wasn't finding the right fit, and so she came to mind. She's a California native,
Wow.
and we started talking, and it was just very quickly the stars aligned for her, and the
Yeah,
board navigated with a lot of wisdom and discernment, and she took the role, and she's starting her first year uh, at Contra Costa this right now. So
that's
it's
great.
just, those are fun stories to tell.
Yeah, yeah. She just started in June, right? Is that the right one? Yeah,
I think
I
so.
think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, and I think, and you touched on it a couple of times. One of the really cool, unique things that I have found about Vanderbloemen is that we don't just you don't call Vanderbloemen for just a list of names, but we're going to spend some time with you. I mean, it's such a key part of what you do with the churches and schools and everyone we work with, getting to know them, understanding their needs, their uniqueness, and then finding someone who matches that. It's not just about skill set. Skill set we're going to look at, that's important. Yeah, there's a resume, but it's so much deeper than that. Of how does this, how are we going to work well together? Is, like you said, and I maybe more complicated than church, maybe not, but parents and staff and boards and the students and all, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of layers to make sure
Yeah.
they're all wrapped up into the same DNA, same heart, same beliefs,
Yeah.
things of that sort. Um, Obviously, we spend with churches. I mean, Williams wrote the book on succession for churches. What are you seeing as far as schools and succession lately?
Yeah. Well, it's a constant conversation I'm having um, with different school leaders, and with a couple of the associations we're very close with, CISA and ACSI. We have strong
Yeah,
partnerships with, and the conversation is around one, that we're going to see schools, Christian schools, are going to see a lot of retirements in
yeah,
the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. Just with the changing workforce demographic,
yeah,
it's coming, and so we know that. I've also had numerous conversations with uh, people in those circles that there's sort of a consensus. I think most would agree to some extent that we in Christian education have not done the best job at developing a leadership pipeline that's
oh,
coming
yeah,
in. And so there's a challenge. It's not an impossibility.
sure,
I think there's still excitement for the future. And I talk to a lot of young Christian leaders in education who are, like I said before, committed um, to
yeah,
the mission of Christian education, and recognize what they just experienced the last couple of years. Right? They know that it's not going to get any easier,
no,
and want to step into that role. But I think we're getting ready over the next, like I think, 3 to 5 years of
yeah,
seeing some challenges in finding qualified, willing heads of school can, and senior leadership positions, I think,
Sure.
across the board at schools. And so it's just, I think it's something that we have to recognize, we have to be prepared for.
Yeah.
And I know that people, again, in some of the circles that I've had these conversations in, people are doing some really great things to try and help us be more equipped and better prepared for that time.
Yeah, and I'll also add, if you go to vanderblumen.com, and under some of our resources, you can see there's actually a succession readiness calculator. So you go through it, answer all the questions, and it'll tell you, hey, here's where you're at. You know, maybe you're an 8, maybe you're a 4, and got some work to do, and can point out some of the areas that you can work on, plan, and things of that sort. And just really, really make sure that you're prepared. I think, churches have, youth pastors and children's pastors and campus pastors, so they kind of have a more logical um, path into leadership, where schools, you've got teachers and you've got leadership, and you don't have a lot of those in betweens, right? So I can see how that would be a much, I don't mean much, but a more challenging thing that we just have to pay attention to and look at. And well, I'm glad that we can be there to help them through that process.
Yeah, and I would say one other thing, I think, I'm sorry now, Michael, I'm putting you on the
No.
spot. I think if people go to our succession calculator, it then kicks out a report
Yeah.
or a brief blogish type thing that I put together for schools to just be asking some of these questions around
Yeah.
succession. And one of the things that I talk to schools about often is, I think that's important, even if you've got a new head and you're excited, right? And you think that head is going to be there for 5 to 10 to
Yeah.
15 years, right? If the
Yeah.
Lord has him there, has him or her there. But I would say having a succession plan for the long term is a healthy thing. I would also say I've worked with too many schools who find themselves in dire straits with an unexpected need
Yeah.
for a new head of school,
Yeah.
whether that's somebody announced an unexpected retirement, somebody ran into health issues, or unfortunately moral failures, or things that
Sure.
come up, and somebody has to step out of that
Right.
in the immediate time frame. Having something and not spinning your wheels on that day that you get the
Yeah.
shocking news
Right.
can go a long way. So
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I'm just thrilled that we can take part in the schools that we get to serve and get a part of. We just I don't know, a month or so ago, we launched a new resource that we send out every Thursday to school leaders, both K through 12 and higher ed, just to talk about some of the issues that they're running into. You can get to that vanderblumen.com/schools. It comes right from Brian, and he talks about what's going on. We've got some podcasts that we make available, some videos that are available. So please go there, sign up to that. That's right on that page. And if there's anything that we can do to help serve you, whether it's succession planning, whether it's finding your next head of school, or senior leader, things of that sort, whether you're a school, whether you're a church, as long as you're Team Jesus, we want to help you out. So Brian, thank you so much. Great to see you again. And thank you for everyone that's tuned in, and we'll see you again soon.
wonderful. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, guys.